What is up, guys? This is Cultivating Christ, and today I'm with Brother Logan.
Hello.
And today we're going to be looking at a few videos on why YouTubers reject Jesus Christ and the reasons for, leaving Christianity. And, we're going to clear up some of these confusions and misconceptions that happen because of people's lack of knowledge or their personal experience. So, Brother Logan has already given his introduction. If you do want to give it again and extra plug, if you want.
Yeah. I think I'll go with the extra plug. So I'm Brother Logan. I have a YouTube channel, a TikTok, a Twitter, etc. I'm a Lutheran Anglican hybrid. I'm built different like that. So yeah, I'm excited to debunk all these atheists.
All right. So where could we find you on YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that?
So BR Logan is always a safe bet, but on YouTube it's BR Logan, and then on Twitter it's BR Logan Michael.
Okay. Well, without a further ado, let's get to the video. So let's get to it.
Listen, I just want you to stop following blindly and to actually think and ask questions. This video, by no means, I'm bashing anyone's religions. I'm bashing anyone's belief. Nothing like that. These are just the questions that I had. You guys been asking. I'm finally going to tell you.
She gon' dance, get those bands.
Not the gang banging music. I'll cut that out.
What's good, everybody? I'm Brady. So today I'm finally going to tell you guys the questions that I had in regards to Christianity and why I ended up giving up Christianity. If a lot of you guys don't know, a lot of you guys do, but I'm sure a lot of you guys don't. I grew up extremely Christian. My family is extremely Christian. I have a huge family. They're all Christian. Not church every Sunday, but a lot of them went to church every Sunday. My family, we didn't go to church every Sunday, but we went to church a lot. We read the Bible a lot. We studied the Bible. Wasn't allowed to curse. What typical Christian family. Everybody in my family is Christian. There's not even anyone that's like, I'm not a Christian. Literally, I have a huge family and everyone is Christian. All right. That's my backstory. I don't want to dive too much into it because I feel like it's not that important, because I really just want to get into the questions that I had. And I'm going to ask you guys these same questions. And I want you guys to think about these questions as well. So when I was 19, I think I was around 19 years old. When I was 19, I decided I wanted to read the Bible for myself. Because I don't know, I was actually on fire for the word. I was on fire for Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to read the Bible myself. I wanted to read it from front to back. I wanted to see what the Bible was talking about, because only time I really heard the Bible was when I went to church or when we had Bible study growing up as a family. But, whenever you go to church or whenever you have Bible study, it's always a theme of the lesson. And so they jump around the Bible. They utilize different passages, utilize different stories of different people to basically tie in their message. And that's a good way to study the Bible. But that was always the way that I read the Bible. That's always the way I studied the Bible. You know what I'm saying? I never read it front to back. So when I was 19 years old, I decided I'm going to read the Bible front to back. I'm deciding to devote my life to Jesus. I stopped cursing for some years and everything. Like, you don't understand. I was on fire. Anyway, so I was like, I'm going to read the Bible front to back. I want to learn the word even more. I want to get deep into Christianity. Woo, woo, woo. I read the Bible from front to back. No joke. I didn't skip no book except for like Numbers, But for the most part, I did not skip any books, any passages, anything. I read the Bible from front to back. It took me like almost a year. I would read maybe like 5 chapters a day, and I would think about what I read every single day. After a year of doing that and reading the Bible front to back, I had so many questions. I'm going to keep it all the way a stack. I had so many questions you guys wouldn't even believe. The Bible, I'm not going to disrespect the Bible. I don't disrespect anyone's religion. The Bible definitely has some good lessons in there. It definitely has a lot of wisdom. It teaches you how to walk in love. Walking in love is perfect. You know what I'm saying? That's all Jesus was about. However, after I read it front to back, so many questions. One of the first questions I had was, since God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, why back in those times did he have his chosen people, the Hebrews, the Israelites, whatever, why were they his chosen people if God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, does that mean he still has only chosen people? Why did he choose this group of people above any other group? I thought he's supposed to love us all. That was one of my first questions, right? And I would ask a lot of different pastors and preachers and like my uncles and aunts and cousins. And they all, of course, gave me their different answers. You know, they were saying because what's his name? Abraham was like the first one to really devote his life to Christ. Or not Christ, but devote his life to God. So God was like, you guys will be my chosen people. He decided to choose Abraham to fulfill his will, blah, blah, blah. Different things of that nature. I was like, fine, whatever. That's completely fine. But still to this day, doesn't really make sense that God.
Okay, can we stop you right here?
And if he's the same today, yesterday, and forever, if he had a chosen people then, does that mean he still has a chosen people? You know what I'm saying? If he doesn't change, because it literally says he's the same today, it literally says he's the same today, yesterday, and forever. So if he doesn't ever change, if back then he decided to say, hey, y'all gonna be my chosen people, I'm gonna allow you guys to win wars. I'm gonna allow.
Okay, so I'll get to the next section, but what do you want to say to that?
So he's saying that there's no longer a chosen people, but if he would have read the Bible front to back, like he said, and I don't question that he did, but 1 Peter 2:9 makes it pretty clear that the Christians are now a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. God is the same. We have the doctrine of the new heavenly Jerusalem. I mean, I don't understand how you can read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation and miss that. You want to talk about it?
I think what's interesting is that he's basically saying if God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, whatever, that the doctrine of election changes throughout time. And the doctrine of election doesn't change at all. If you do read the book of Romans, it tells you that the narrative of justification is continuous, that by faith and apart from your works, you are justified before God. Now, before we dive into the whole James thing, from what Paul teaches exegetically, is that we have faith, we put our faith in God's revelation, and that's what justifies us. That is what justified people in the past. If you read Hebrews 11, you can see just 2 chapters before it says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that there is a whole array of people on this list that were called, men of faith, because that is what God honors. And they're recognized in the New Testament era as being just before God and honorable.
And not only that, but they're seen as people we should, at Hebrews 12:1. Wherefore, seeing we also have this encompassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that has been set before us. So God didn't just go from, he chose the Israelites and then he just doesn't have anybody that he chose. It's literally showing the Israelites as the people we should follow in the footsteps of, the people who were justified by faith alone. So yeah, I don't get how you can read the book of Romans and not understand that we're predestined in some way, and predestination is a figurement of the chosen, like the chosen people.
A good preface that I would actually like to make about this guy, there's nothing wrong with reading the whole entire Bible, but the approach he did it was, I read the Bible, then I had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Not, let me exegetically understand each passage, verse by verse, because who has time for that? I mean, when you actually sit down and take the time to say, okay, let's see every instance in Scripture, it's going to be for him more homework, but it's going to be for you more understanding. So I think his approach was bad because he dived into it, didn't understand it, and then he just says, okay, this can't be answered because I'm not satisfied with the answer.
Not only exegetically, but historically. I don't know if he went with the Bible and then understood the historical context behind everything. Let's be honest, this book is what? How old? I don't know the number off the top of my head. I know that Christianity 4,000 to 6,000. There's no way we could just do a basic reading. Of course we could do a basic reading and understand salvation and understand, the things laid out. But whenever it comes down to like especially Old Testament passages, what's happening with Babylon, what's happening with the Israelites and the Philistines, etc., we need to understand historical accuracy. We need to understand historical evidence. We need to understand the historical place that this is set in, because these are historical books of a generation that we do not live in, right? And so a lot of the time, whenever I see people like say, "Oh, I read the Bible front to back, but I didn't understand it, so I'm not a Christian anymore." Well, yeah, you didn't understand it. It's 4,000 years old. It's not something that you could just pick up. It's like reading the Epic of Gilgamesh and not looking at when it was written and just being like, this isn't Marvel. Like, of course it's not. So we should treat the Bible as holy and as able to convey the message of salvation and give salvation, but also it is a historical book at the end of the day. It is a historical book that even the New Testament is 2,000 years old.
Right.
I mean, it's an old book. And so we can't just pick it up, read it, and be like, oh, I don't understand it. Sorry. Like, yeah.
Yeah, we can continue.
Allow you guys to kill people. I'm allowing you guys to go to different nations. And since they don't believe in me, you're going to kill them. Don't take any of their women, their children, because I don't want them to corrupt you guys. So kill them all and utilize my name. You know, God is the reason why you're killing all these people. Utilize that. It is completely fine. To me, it just didn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people gave me their answers, and I was like, fine, that's fine. I let it go. I decided to still have faith and continue to believe. But I had two questions that no one can answer. And I had two questions that I just could not get out of my mind, and it didn't make sense to me. Question number one: why did God create the devil? If God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and he created everything, why create the devil? Doesn't make sense. Still to this day, it doesn't make sense to me. But back then, it didn't make sense either. And so I would ask my cousins, my family, my friends, pastors, preachers at different churches, you know, why did God create the devil? And basically, I'm going to keep it a stack. Everyone would say the same thing. They would say, God created the devil to utilize him to fulfill his purpose. But if God is all powerful, all knowing, and if he's the God of all gods and he can do anything he wants, why not create this world where that purpose that the devil is going to serve, you allow that purpose to be served in a different fashion, and you don't need the devil? See what I'm saying? So I would ask them that. For a lot of people, that would go over their heads. They wouldn't even understand what I'm saying. So let me break it down. If God is all powerful, all knowing, all creative, why create the devil? People always say because God had to create the devil so he could serve God's purpose. God needed the devil for XYZ. Okay, but God is all knowing, all powerful. He could have came up with a different way to create the world to where he would need the devil to serve that purpose. See what I'm saying? He can create the world in a way that the devil doesn't have to exist. And with me asking people that and asking pastors and preachers and different family members, they would all just be like, no, he had to create the devil. Brandon knows what you're talking about. I'm like, listen, he's all powerful. He's all creative. He can create anything that he wants. He did not need to create the devil to get across his purpose. He could have did something else to get across his purpose because he's all creative. Then they would say, who are you to say how God should create? Do you know better than God? I'm like, no, I do not. However, I just think if you're creating the devil and you're going to send millions of people to hell, you could have came up with a better plan. You know what I'm saying? That's just me personally. That's what I think.
Okay, please pause.
End of the day,
Okay. There's so many things.
I did want to address the war thing. It was like a 30-second thing.
Yeah. Let's do the war thing and then we'll. Oh, dear heavens. Oh. Okay, go ahead. So you can address the war thing. I don't feel like dealing with it. I'll let me simmer on the devil thing.
Okay, so what I do want to mention is the purging of the Canaanites, Ammonites, Hittites, Perizzites, or whatever, all the ites. It's not because they just didn't believe in God, or they didn't believe in Yahweh. It's because they have this system of idolatry. They have Molech and they have Baal and they have all these gods where they're sacrificing their own children. They're participating in sexual immorality. They actually there's rampant oppression everywhere. And so it's not just a society where it's like, oh, we just have paganism and this, that, and the other. No, you have an actual, like, you actually have like human laws being broken. You have the image of God being destroyed because people are just sacrificing these things to deities. And you're doing this for generations on end. And what ends up happening is that it's not only just because they don't believe in God, but as well, this will corrupt other civilizations that are not practicing this thing, and it becomes universal.
Yes. And also, we need to understand God's kingship role at this time. And especially whenever his rules within his kingship ruling is moral rules that is applied. His moral rules are applied within his kingship ruling. So if he sees this happening and it has the idea of spreading, then he is going to rid of it before his people are corrupted. Doesn't that make sense? A king
Right.
seeing massive amounts of, let's say something not even spiritual, let's say massive amounts of people like in this culture, people openly sacrifice their kids towards another random god, right? So they sacrifice their kids, but you can see that there's a major decrease within, like, there's a major population drop, right? And no king wants to see a major population drop. So what is the king going to do? He's going to make sure that does not spread into his kingdom, so that there's not a major population drop and there's not a failure of his kingdom. Now we add on to that the morality of God and the moral rules that he has put onto his people. And so it makes perfect sense why God would stop that to happen, not because they don't believe in him, but because he was protecting his people.
And another thing is you need to understand, and one of the things that is most frustrating is we put God as if he's, one of us. And so whatever moral principles that we have, whatever presuppositions that we would have that we think God should do, is inevitably what we know that God does. So our theology, and instead of like studying the nature of God, we study the nature of ourselves, and from that we create a replication.
Apply it.
And we create, God. And so I mentioned this previously, that for man, we're made in the image of God, but what God does, what men do to God, is that we try and create him in the image of man. So it's kind of, that's what the war starts, is we're called to be servants and images of him, but we end up living like he is a servant and image of us.
Yeah, and that just naturally follows through the fall of man, becoming our own God and being just like God. So we think that we created God, right?
And so in that sense, I mean, the moral principles of prostitution, idolatry, child sacrifice, all these things that people, child sacrifice is a big thing, but people don't think prostitution is a big thing, or they don't think that sexual immorality is a big thing. But I mean, remember, this isn't our world that we decide what laws within our secular context apply to biblical laws. Because first of all, this is God's world and it's not our world. So if we want to say, okay, this is our standard of morality, well, you're getting it from just your opinion yourself. So you just basically say, I don't like God. And it's nothing because God isn't real, and it's not because God hasn't shown himself, or it's not because God has not shown his nature sufficiently. It's just that you just don't like his rules. And that's a problem. That's a spiritual problem instead of kind of like a philosophical and evidential problem.
It all goes back to the fall of man,
Mm-hmm.
Not liking God's rules and just wanting to be like God and make your own rules. But I do want to address the Satan situation. So within why did God make Satan if he knew Satan would be evil? Well, what we have to understand is that angels have free will. Angels can leave the heavenly course and fall. And so Satan has free will to, be away from God. and hell was created for Satan and his demons at first. And so we can understand that that God allowed Satan to do what he is doing for his purpose, which you brought up in your video. This guy, I can't remember your name, but you brought that up in your video, that people gave you that answer and it wasn't very convincing to you, but it's true. Satan is being allowed. God didn't make Satan for this. God made Satan just like he made us to love and praise him. But in allowance with our will, he has allowed him to do this. There's a difference in making somebody for a certain thing and then allowing them to do a certain thing. It's like me making a clock and making it for the reason of telling time, but then I allow it to be a paperweight whenever I need it to be a paperweight. It's meant to be a clock, but whenever I need it to be a paperweight, or whenever, let's say this clock has free will, the clock, I know that's a weird thing to think of a clock with free will, but you understand my terrible analogies. The clock I will allow the clock to do what it pleases because, God, we say to God, thy will be done, right? But people who deny God's power, God says to them, thy will be done. And so God doesn't send people to hell. He brought up, couldn't he just made another way so like a bunch of people couldn't go to hell? No, God doesn't send people to hell. People send themselves to hell. God says, submit to my will, which is freely given. He doesn't say perfectly, because if he did, there was be no reason for Christ. If we could even think about doing it perfectly, there would be no reason for Christ. But he says, have faith in me, submit to my will, and you will join in the heavenly course. But God isn't this overbearing, toxic boyfriend, right? I love that analogy. But it's like the toxic boyfriend where he'll force you to be with him, even if you don't want to be. He will allow you to be away from him, and being away from God is hell. Now, people can argue about what hell is. Is it literally a fiery furnace? Really, I don't care. The worst part about hell to me is being away from God. That is the essence of hell. Whether it's physical fire, whether it's spiritual fire, I don't care. At this point, it's being away from God. That is hell. And so God says, you want to be away from me? That's okay. I still love you, but you chose this. And so Satan, God didn't make Satan for like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make Satan so like a bunch of people go to hell. No, God says, okay, right? God allowed Satan to do what he was doing, and then Adam and Eve fell into the trap of Satan by their own will. God shunned them from the Garden of Eden because the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I mean, the tree of life. He shunned them from the village. But even so, he was planning the redemption, and the picture behind me is the way that he redeemed.
Yeah, I would say two things. Number one, if God can create a world where no one falls and no one has free will, but then how do we have actual love? How do we receive and return love if we're already programmed to do so? I'm looking at you, Calvinists. How would it work that someone can be responsible before God? There's no responsibility before God, and there's no true love. And number two, a world where there is free will and there's actual fall. I forgot which Christian philosopher said it, but it is better as a whole, as a narrative, to have a story of redemption than more so than, and Christ says this in the parable of the prodigal son, it is better that the son be lost and returned than that one son that was always there from the beginning. Christ values the virtue of redemption. Mm-hmm. He doesn't value the virtue of perdition because it's not a virtue, but Christ values a world where people can freely be redeemed. And that is something that brings God more glory than, someone that was always there and the angels that were always there. Because it says that heaven rejoices over one sinner who repents. And so that's how God values so greatly this free will, at the same time a redemption that God actualizes with his grace. And so can God make a world, however he wants? Yes. But the thing is, I think it has to do with the fact that our human heart does not like that God permits us to have a free choice. But at the same time, we do like it. We do like the benefits of saying, I can reject God, as he makes a whole video questioning God. And so he likes the enjoyment of free will, but at the same time, he gets mad when God lets him have his free will.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It's like I love free will because I'm able to, live my life as I please, right? But then they don't like free will because God allowed all this evil. Well, living your life as you please is going to be the cause of evil.
Right. And God will allow like people to live to maybe the fullest extent of their free will. And one of the reasons why I would say, and it gets to the problem of evil, why does God allow evil? I think one of them is to show how evil we are. And
yeah, definitely.
C.S. Lewis talks about how evil is like God's megaphone to the world amidst the pain and suffering.
Yeah, how truly we need, forgiveness.
Yeah.
It also, like you said, God values a redemptive story. And I know Inspiring Philosophy put out a video on this, on the problem of evil, and I watched it and it was really good. He explained that whole thing, like God doesn't want, like these people who don't have a story, who don't have, this who don't have personality, who don't have this. He wants people. He wants you. He doesn't want a robot. He wants you. Even before the fall, he walked with Adam. Adam had a personality, and personality is made through perseverance, but also challenges. And so, I think, and Adam failed one of the challenges, being temptation.
Right.
And so Adam is the crux of the fall of man, but the new Adam is the crux of the redemption of man.
Mm-hmm. I did want to point out one thing about the chapter of this section is how God should create. So
how I think God should do it.
How I think God should do it, and it's not so much the whole "who are you to talk back to God," but in the aspect of my guy. First of all, like, we don't know everything. That's number one, and I know he's not going to like this answer, but I mean it's true. I mean, if you had the ability, and this gets into kind of like the sci-fi world with like Doctor Strange. There's a movie scene with Doctor Strange, I think, that he was allowed to see like all the possible worlds, and he
Infinity War.
he permitted like the worst outcome or something like that because he knew that in any other way to try and save it, it was actually going to be for the detriment of everything. So he allows it, and you would say, well, if Doctor Strange is so loving and kind, why didn't he allow the other things? Because he was allowed to know and not actualize, but he had the power to actualize all the possible worlds that were around. So I mean, if you're going to say how should God create, you're giving one opinion. You're giving not even your 2 cents on God's exhaustive foreknowledge.
Yeah, I just think of Isaiah 45:9. Woe to the one who quarrels with his maker, a piece of pottery among the other earthenware pottery pieces. Will the clay say to the potter, "What are you doing?" Or the thing you are making say, "He has no hands." Like, what are we to say? Like, he is our designer, he is our creator. So how can we say it if we understand that I can't make something and not be outside of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the argument of like creation. So I can't make something and not be outside it. Like I can't build a Lego house and be within the Lego house. That's impossible. Mm-hmm. So God is outside of us, so he knows more than we do. So how can we say that God should do this way and he has to do this way and this way, whenever everything we do is stealing from God, our very breath, our very will, our very moral standard? It's I don't understand. Like how can we do that?
I feel like it's just an argument from kind of like a limited standpoint. We'll continue.
Today, a lot of them would just basically tell me, you got to have faith. You got to believe that God's knowledge and his wisdom is so much higher than yours that you cannot fathom, you cannot begin to fathom why he would do that. He did it because he needed to do it. You will not understand why. That is what they would hit me with. And I'll just be like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So at the end of the day, you want me to just say, I can't fathom why he created the devil. So just accept it. And they'll say, yes, have faith.
Now, okay. Now I do understand where he's coming from. He's like getting the whole like the cold spear, and he's like, just shut up and believe. He's receiving it kind of in that manner. I wouldn't receive in that manner because from what God has revealed to us, we can investigate, determine. I mean, we can explain these things on the problem of evil. And there's been a lot of good work on this subject within Christian philosophy. But when you have to admit there are things we just don't know. We can't really expect God to just like drop the solution to every single thing, like not to the problem of evil, but more so, give me the reason why that happened, and I'll worship you.
Yeah.
If I have that knowledge like solved, people will still not worship God.
Exactly. That's sadly what happens. I mean, Adam walked with God, and he ate the fruit. Like like Adam walked with God. We see many times in the Old Testament, Noah talked with God, saved his family, whether you believe, he saved his family, whether you believe it's a national or a global flood or just like it doesn't matter. Noah literally talked with God. As soon as he gets off the ark, he goes and gets drunk and naked in a tent.
Yeah.
I mean,
and there are times where Christ will actually explain why he allows certain evils.
The blind man. The divorce, and then I think of the blind man. It's like, why is he, or is it the lame man? Is it blind or lame?
The blind man. Why is he blind? Is it because he sinned or his parents sinned? Is like, no, because
to show the glory of God.
Yeah. And for the divorce section, is like, why did Moses give the certificate of divorce? The Jews asked Jesus, and then Jesus said, because of your hardened hearts. God was actually making a concession with you. So
you suck.
Yeah. And God will explain this, and the Jews will still reject it. So I do want to say this. Even if God gave him the reasons for specific evils to even be allowed, sometimes people will just be unsatisfied with it.
I mean, Pharaoh literally saw the plagues and his heart just hardened more. Like, he's like, he accurately predicted these plagues. They're happening perfectly, but I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just say God will not show reasons, and if he even did show reasons, people just not going to be satisfied with it. It's like a whole father-son relationship. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let you go out and party because I know these people will get you in a bad situation. This is the explanation. I just gave it. And then the son's like, no, I don't like that explanation. And the father's like, I don't care if you don't like explanation. That's how it is. And it's like, okay, that's not fair. And I'm like, what? Like you really need to understand that, first of all, I mean, God gives you a sufficient reason. It might be like on the head. You just might not like it. And even if you don't know it, you have to be willing to say, okay, there are things we don't know. But what I do know from scripture is that God will redeem everything for the better of his glory. And so part of it has to do with trust, and not blind trust, because you can see without the narrative of scripture that God has provided for people in the midst of them trying to provide for themselves, in the midst of them failing, actually, in the midst of them trying to create a name for themselves. God repurposes that and redeems it. And he never tells the person to begin with, I will humble you. I will strike you down so that you return to me. And there are times where he will show that.
Definitely.
With a lot of characters, he doesn't. It's
like at a job. It's like why should we trust you? Right. Like if you're going to apply for a job, it's like, why should we trust you with this big job? And it's like, well, if you have nothing on your resume of doing anything like this job, if you have literally nothing, you've worked at Taco Bell, but you're trying to get a job at a doctor's office. Yeah, at Tesla or something. So of course they're gonna be like, we can't trust you. You don't have ample evidence. But the thing is, God has ample evidence to show that we should trust him even whenever it doesn't look like he's going to do anything. Because time and time again, he has delivered people that A, didn't deserve it, and B, didn't predict it. And so we have ample evidence to trust God even in the things that we can't possibly fathom. And the only reason we have ample evidence is because God has revealed those things.
Mhm.
So, anyways, yeah,
Yeah, we'll keep trucking.
trucking along.
Okay. So that's one of the questions nobody has ever answered my whole life. And that is the same question nobody still can answer to this day. Question number 2. Why create hell? Why create hell? So I would ask same question, why create hell? And I always got the same answer that I said about the devil. Because hell serves its purpose. What? All right, why create the people? Why create the millions of people that are going to live life but then burn for eternity? Why? What is the purpose of that? And then people will hit me because those people are going to serve some sort of purpose while they're living. So since they have to serve their purpose, that's why God created them. And I'll hit them with the same question. If God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-creative, couldn't he have allowed those people to serve their purpose in a different way to where they don't have to burn for eternity? Why have people burn for eternity?
Just a pause. He'll keep going, but I do want to say I think he is going into fatalism, and I don't think that's a necessary view of God. Just really quickly.
Yeah, he's presupposing fatalism. Yeah.
Why can't you have them, I don't know, go to like detention to where they learn better and they get another shot at life, aka the karma cycle? But anyway, this is why I'm just
cringe.
It's like it didn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? And to a lot of pastors and preachers and a lot of family members, I'm asking them, why did he create hell? And once again, if I ask follow-up questions about God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-creative, he could have came up with a different system. Why burn people for eternity when you can literally come up with a different system? That seems cruel to me. People will hit me with the same thing. Who are you, Brandon, to say what is cruel? Who are you, Brandon, to judge God's actions? You can't even fathom his thinking, so you don't even know if that's truly cruel or not. Who are you, Brandon, to say that? You know? So I'll just be like, okay, so you want me to say that God burning millions and billions and trillions of people?
Trillions.
First off, because it's people throughout all time, they're going to burn forever. So God burning those trillions and quadrillion people for all time, that's not shady. And they literally would say, you cannot judge God's actions. You do not know why he does what he does. That is the pot asking the maker, hey, why did you make me black?
Oh boy.
You can't say that to the clay maker. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those are the things that they would say to me. Basically, and then they would hit me with, you got to just have faith and believe. You just walk. You just walk in love. You believe in Jesus Christ. And you don't have to worry about that. You're not going to burn. Those people will burn. Yes, that sucks for them. They didn't accept Jesus Christ. Too bad for them. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. Why would a God that's all loving, all powerful, and that could create everything, why would he create the devil? Why would he create hell? Why create these people that you say you love, these people that you made in your image, but yet you're going to allow them to burn for eternity? If you're all knowing, you know what happened yesterday, today, and tomorrow, so you know the type of life they're going to live. Why allow them to burn for eternity? Didn't make sense to me then, still doesn't make sense to me to this day. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of the end. That sparked the question.
Okay. Well, he just had 2 questions. Okay. So to cover on the subject of hell, we kind of covered a little bit on it. Why does God create hell? Well, God created hell originally for the original rebellion, the spiritual rebellion.
Yeah.
And so God's original design is not for people to go to hell. God's actual original design is, as we see in the Garden of Eden, is that we would be priests of creation. The creation mandate is given to Adam and Eve. When? After the fall? No, before the fall. Actually, God wanted the world to be pre-fall populated. God wanted population on the earth pre-fall, because that's where the creation mandate was, before the fall. And so God wanted people to be born redeemed, or born, not even lost, to be redeemed. God just wanted people to be in fellowship and communion with him. But in order for that to happen, people have to have a free choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I want to bring up so many things. He is presupposing like that hell is an eternal fire that is never quenchable, and I understand that there's many views on it. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier with his first question. It's God. I don't think God finds pride in sending people to hell. I don't see anywhere in scripture where God is like, "Oh, didn't believe in me. Sorry." Like what God does is he says, "Thy will be done," right? And it's hell, as I said again, is ultimately the worst part of hell is separation from God. Uh, whether that is a literal fire, whether that is a feeling of fire, whether it's just fire was a figurative, whether it's annihilationism, I don't know. And frankly, I don't care. The ultimate thing that I try that the reason why I try to preach the gospel is because separation from God is hell. And no matter what view you hold, hell is separation from God. And so he was
Right.
talking about like why does a loving God like a God that loves all these people, why would he send them to hell, right? So let's think about this. Let's say I have a kid and he turns 18. At that point, he wants to leave my house. He wants to cut off all ties with me, and he wants to go live his life on his own without me at all, right? So, me being a loving father, I'm gonna say, okay, that's fine. You're 18. You're an adult. You can make that decision. Uh, you can go out on your own, and I'm always there for you. I'm always there if you want to come back, but I'm not going to make you stay here. So he goes out, he does everything that he does. It sounds like one of the parables Jesus taught. He goes out, does what he wants to do, but let's say he doesn't come back like the parable. Well, I can't do anything about that. I'm not going to go out and force him to 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 come back to me. I'm not going to go out and force him to love me, even though that's not love. Forcing somebody to love you is not love. So I'm not going to go out and force him to 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 be with me, even though he has openly rejected me. And so God does the same. He doesn't send people to hell. They openly reject him. And so whenever they die in rejectfulness. They die in absence of God. And absence of
Mhm.
God is hell. And so to be present with God is to be in God's glory and to be in heaven and to be in the greatness that is God's presence. And to be absent with God is hell. And it's sadness, and it's because all goodness, all happiness, all everything comes from God. So to be absent from God is to be absent from happiness, love, joy, etc. So God isn't the abusive boyfriend. That's the ultimate premise here.
There's actually a verse I did want to share. So it's in Ezekiel 33:11. Say to them, as I live, declares the Lord God, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but that the wicked turn from his way and live. Turn back from your evil ways. For why will you die, O house of Israel? So what is God saying here? God's saying it's clearly not necessary that you go to hell. It's clearly not necessary that the wicked perish. It says that instead of him having pleasure in the death of the wicked, he actually has pleasure that the wicked turn from his way and live.
Yeah, and I mean, and right here he even pleads. He pleads for them to come back. Like I said, it goes back to the father. I mean, the father would plead for his son to come back, but ultimately, the father isn't going to chase him down, grab him, and pack him in the back of the truck and bring him home, because that's not love. Love is coming back, or love is never leaving. And so, yeah, that's
Yeah, we'll keep going. Just as a parenthesis, I'll edit this out. How much time do you have?
uh Sheesh. Maybe another 30 to 40 minutes.
All right, that's good enough. That's good.
Okay, cool. Are you playing the video?
What?
Are you playing the
my bad.
video?
Yep. I'll play it back. Hold on.
This guy.
The end. Sparked the questions, and I kept asking questions, and I asked that question for like at least 3 years to many different pastors, many different preachers. I was going to different churches because it didn't make sense to me. And over a 3 to 4 year period, I finally gave up Christianity. Because then I started to look into different religions. I started to look into ancient religions. I saw how ancient Egyptian religions had the same story as Christianity, yet it came out years and years and years before. You know about
okay. I'm so
about-
sorry. I'm so sorry.
the name?
I'm so sorry. I gotta freak out I gotta geek out for a half a second. No. Horus had 12 disciples, was baptized, was born on December 25th, was born of a virgin, and he died, called himself the way, the truth, and the life. This is exactly from the one movie. I forgot what it was called. It's what was that one movie? It's by like Daniel Brown or something like that. The Da Vinci Code. I think it's the Da Vinci Code. It basically goes and explains like these different religions. They're basically all Christian, but they're all proto-Christian without knowing that they're proto-Christian. And so essentially, the funny thing is that when you get to that point in time where you're like, okay, everyone had this, that, and the other, it's like, okay, I'm going to study these other religions. When you actually study these other religions, that's not true. They don't have baptism, born of a virgin, dies for the sin of the world, calls themselves the way, the truth, and the life. This is all stuff that people try and do to say that Christianity comes from paganism. Inspiring Philosophy actually does a good video, like an actual large playlist on Jesus versus the pagan gods.
Almost like every single one that Jesus has been compared to, he does a video on. And most of the time people read like books that have, if you even read a book, no offense, but some people most of the time read books and they don't check the quotations. Like, guys, this is whenever you truly believe that you're talking about your eternal salvation here, read the quotations. Like, guys.
And we'll keep going.
What's the name? I forgot the names. But anyway, you see, I got the Eye of Horus. That was during that time period in my life. But anyway, so I saw how ancient religions have the same story as Jesus about the virgin birth.
I knew it. I said it.
And I was just like, huh? It sparked an awakening in my consciousness. You know what I'm saying? And still to this day, people cannot answer those questions.
The Philippians 4:13 on his arm.
I'm asking you guys.
Yeah, I know. It's like, dude,
I didn't notice
he
that.
doesn't. He actually just doesn't know where he's at, and that's what ends up happening. I mean, first of all, I will question, as a Baptist, I will question his salvation, because I think one aspect of this whole thing is your sanctification life. Has God created a regeneration within your heart? And it's not about I have a fire for the word of God. Do you actually have a desire to be holy? And have you experienced God's holy regeneration within your life? Have you had a experience where you've been passed from death to life? Now, I know not everyone has this radical conversion story, but this is something important. At least in the very least, do you have a desire for holiness? A desire to seek righteousness, or do you just desire, for autonomy? I think that's what's going to seal it most within most of these people that leave Christianity. It's not that they leave Christianity because of piety or of holiness, but it's more so that people want to be autonomous and they want to seek their own thing and they want to do their own thing. And for this reason, I feel like he leaves Christianity and then he gets bunched up into this whole lie that, everything is Christianity is inspired from all these religions.
Yeah.
We'll keep going.
Why do you think God created the devil? Why do you think God created hell? Really think about that. And don't just say he created it to serve his purpose. A God that's all powerful and all knowing and all creative, couldn't he have come up with a different way to serve his purpose rather than having billions and trillions and quadrillions of people burning in hell for eternity?
I don't think there even was quadrillion people on this earth.
2000 years of Christian history, and you didn't find an answer.
I will say I feel like part of it has to do with the fact that, you know, pastors and people in clergy aren't prepared for the answer. But number two, I don't think he did a sufficient research. Being serious, I don't think he actually went into the Christian academia and searched these answers these questions, because there are actually good treatises and great works by a lot of philosophers like Alvin Plantinga, Richard Swinburne. And there's a whole bunch of other philosophers that are off the top of the head. Even Inspired Philosophy, I mean, he's just a YouTuber. Looking at these like figures and seeing their works on hell and like, why does God permit Satan to do this, that, and the other? There are actually works out there that are peer reviewed, and, you know, they have been the basis of many like rigorous study. I don't think he's actually done that. What he did was, and I know that's not his fault necessarily, but he went to just pastors and preachers and clergy. And I think this gets into the realm of a philosophical aspect, which I think if he did more time digging, he would have realized, yeah, there are actually more sufficient answers to these questions. But we're just giving them from a practical standpoint. What were you going to say, Logan?
No, I just said definitely.
Mm-hmm. Think about that. I just want you to think for a second. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. React back tomorrow. So next time, I love the reason why I gave up Christianity. I gave up Christianity when I was like 22, 23. And that was the catalyst. Me reading the Bible from front to back, me having questions. I had a lot of other little questions here and there because there were some, what is the term called? When the Bible would say certain things,
contradictions.
I'm like, it doesn't really match up. What is that? What is that term called? It's like, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, I can't think of it right now. But y'all have a great day. See y'all next time. Y'all know y'all my homies. So I'm just starting to let you guys know a little bit more about me. That is why I don't believe in any religion. I don't believe in any religion. I definitely believe there's a creator, there's a God. I don't know if it's just the universal consciousness. I don't know if it's just the universal energy that's within everything, because everything has energy. Everything vibrates. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Sorry, I
can't. Vibration.
I can't.
No, I can't.
All right. So
at the end of
what would be ranked?
The ending of this is he believes in the Force. Like, he believes in the Force. He believes he's a Jedi. So
he's a Jedi.
He's a Jedi.
I think, okay. So to assess the whole video, leaves Christianity for two reasons or two questions. Why did God create the devil, and why did God create hell? And so if that's not answered, therefore he's not going to be a Christian.
Yeah, and two honestly easy questions that he could have just picked up a book on instead of like asking his run-of-the-mill evangeli pastor. Like, I mean, just pick up a book. Like, pick up like like St. Augustine or something. God.
St. Augustine, Aquinas.
Yeah, Aquinas. I was gonna say Aquinas.
There's a book on natural theology that I think William Lane Craig did a treatise on. I mean, there's just so many like works out there that can give you a really deep answer. And I'm not saying that like I don't have an answer for this. I'm just saying there's further study that you can make on these areas. So God has created the world to where the people that actually want to find him out are able to find him out with sufficient research and sufficient evidence, mm-hmm. and, you know, different witnesses throughout, you know, the ages. But yeah, that's this guy's ex testimony or whatever. On a more practical or not practical, you want to switch to another video, or do you want to like say some final concluding thoughts?
Yeah, let's do final concluding thoughts, and it'll just be like a one video thing.
You just want to do just this video, and that's
wait. Do you want to do just this video, or do you want to do?
We can. Videos? I mean, it depends.
You have
on
an hour.
Much...
I have like what, like 30 minutes or so. I'm just wondering because you've been recording for like an hour. I don't know how much.
No, that's fine. I'll cut this up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't have any final conclusions. Just let's do a fun one because this guy's bummed me out.
Well, are we doing Logan?
Huh?
Are we doing Logan?
Oh man.
You want to do this
Yeah,
one?
sure. We'll do that. We'll do
Oh
that
shoot!
one.
What did I do? All right.
Okay.
We'll be going. Okay. So now we're going to be transitioning to Logan Paul's. What religion should you believe in?
I think there's some sort of unimaginable thing that made us in this universe and everything around us. But like I said, I don't know if he's as active as Faith would tell you, because I'm confused. I don't truly understand. There's too many stories being told. There's too many people saying different things. Religion, faith, whatever you want to call it, has led to the deaths of too many people, has led to the trauma of too many children. And I've just been not shut off to the idea, but turned off momentarily. And that I'm excited. I'm excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure I can fully wrap my head around so many people telling me different things about their God.
Yes.
You know, in Islam, Allah is the God, and Judaism, Jesus is the God, and yeah, Judaism.
No. Well,
is Judaism Jewish?
right. They're the
I don't think you have to be an
Jesus.
expert
You could
on
probably
this
ask the
stuff,
theology.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're right.
Probably.
No, I don't think you have to be an expert on it. No, you have to have at least a grasp, a basic grasp on what religion is. He's gonna go to different topics, but
An expert?
You want to address it?
Okay, so whenever this is like my main thing with people. Whenever I think people just have it in their mind that oh, I'm not religious. So basically what that tells me about a person, you don't think about death. You ignore it. You ignore death at every possible outcome, because if you really truly thought about death, thought about what's happening after death, and not just ignoring it, then you would come to Christianity. That's how it works. And to hear him say Judaism believes Jesus is God proves to me that he has not looked into any of this. And they say you don't have to be an expert. No, and you don't have to be an expert to know that Judaism rejects Christ. That's kind of the whole reason Jesus died. The whole reason that Jesus was put on a cross in 2,000 years ago.
I think that is the cop out when you say you don't have to be an expert, and I'm like, you have to at least have a knowledge of what you're talking about. I mean, to believe in any religion, you have to look not only at the alternatives, but also just what the religion teaches in general. And I think this is number one reason why people do not accept Christianity is just misinformation. To address the two things he was talking about, number one, the religion is the major cause of all wars. Actually, that is false. The most deaths that have occurred is in the 20th century. And you want to take a guess who that is or what kind of ideology that is? That's communism. Communism has caused the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. When you have Soviet Russia with Stalin, he killed millions of his own people. You have Mao Zedong that has killed millions of his people. You have Pol Pot, killed millions of his own people. You have I forgot, there's this one guy in Cambodia or whatever, but and throughout the span of the 20th century alone, and Hitler,
The
you have
Kim dynasty.
deaths that have nothing to do with religion. Actually, it was society that was built upon the design to be against religion, and that has killed more than all the jihads and crusades.
Yeah, I think about like you brought up like communism, but like the Kim dynasty even today, I mean they're killing hundreds of thousands of people. We just don't have a specific number because North Korea is very closed off, but the Kim dynasty kills a lot of people daily still. So it's to say that Christianity is the reason that all wars happened or even to say Christianity is the main reasons why war happens. Not true. It's just historically not true.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to compare a large majority of the wars, I mean, all the wars that have most of the wars, if not all the wars that have happened in the American, history, hasn't been because of religion. It's because of politics.
Yeah, but what people don't separate is that politics and religion can coincide, but the causative action of said war is politics. It's just religion influences your political views.
Mhm.
Whether you have a religion like Islam, where your political views will be more towards Islam, or your religion, sorry to tell you, is atheism, because it is a religion. If your religion is atheism, your political views are going to be different than a Christian's. So
Mhm.
people can't separate religion and politics a lot of the times. So they see religion playing a role in a war and don't see it as oh, it's just caused because of religion. No, religion has a role in politics, being that religion influences your political views.
And then to address the second part, he talks about how religion or Christianity is responsible for many childhood trauma or something like that. I would say that the Bible itself is used as a sword. The Bible says that, the word of God as a two-edged sword, cuts deep in the heart. It can be used to kill people, like kill people's spirits, or it can be used to expose things that have been hidden. So it depends on how you use, how you utilize and how you share Christianity ultimately, because the way that Jesus presents himself, he is strong with the proud, and he is very, very, very sarcastic, bombastic, very angry with people who appear themselves to be religious but are actually hypocrites. And God will actually give more grace and mercy and more attention to the sinner. And so that is the aspect and the attitude that Christ presents. So anything subsequent to that is contrary to that nature of which Christ has brought is not Christianity. That's
yes, exactly. With being active on TikTok, there's been several trends talking about like, oh, religious trauma. I will say a lot of it is just Gen Z being Gen Z and saying that everything that they don't like is traumatic. But there is valid religious trauma. But the problem here is that they see these terrible things that maybe a pastor or a priest or somebody who works at the church does, or just lay Christians do, and they equate that with Christianity. The problem here is it's like looking at a hospital and looking at all the sick people in the lobby. It's like saying, "Oh, there's sick people here. They don't cure nothing." No. It's like going to or an even better one. It's like going to a hospital and then and getting cured and then going out and getting sick again and then blaming the hospital for getting sick. No, that's not how that works. What it is that Christianity has these guidelines. People suck. That is like the main thing about Christianity. The law condemns and it terrifies our conscience.
Mhm.
But through Christ, the perfect law follower has gifted us this righteousness in front of God, not righteousness that we attain, but righteousness that Christ obtains. So whenever people aren't righteous within Christianity, I say, yeah, that's kind of the whole point, guys. Like, yeah, I suck. I know I do. And everybody else does as well. But somebody died for me who didn't suck.
Yeah, I'll just keep going.
Probably ask him, man.
But you're right in your train of thought
Yes.
either way. So everyone has their own
Is that
interpretation.
Carl Lentz?
I thought that was a friar at first.
No, that's Carl Lentz.
The guy,
Oh,
no, the
God,
guy to
so
the
it gets
left. I
really-
thought that was a friar.
The guy to the right. I mean,
Be really horribly confusing.
Yeah.
So our job is to try to make it as plain as we can. And number one, if you ever talk to a Christian that's super defensive, you could probably stop listening right away, because that's not a trait of our faith. Like Jesus said, they will know you by your love. Out of all the things Jesus said, I want people to recognize you for, that's what he said. They're not going to know you by your fancy speech or your clean life or your theological depth. Jesus said, if you're really with me, people will know it because of the way you love people.
I love that message.
That's wild to me.
That's
so
such a good message.
how I came to the faith that I have is that people let me doubt, and they let me question, and they let me push back, and they just kept pointing me on this investigation road, which I'm going to say to all y'all, you make these calls for yourself. It's not as confusing as you think. It's like if someone were to say, I can't do YouTube. It's too complicated. What would you say to that? Yes, but I'm sitting on an empire, right?
Yeah. It was done.
If it's worth it, you'll look. And I know I just met you, but I know the two of you have deep souls and you care about stuff. So you should pursue it, because it's the biggest question in life.
I like the idea of being a good person and following everything that you said. I don't know if I could put a label on it that would define me in a certain way. Does that make sense?
Maverick. That's how you should define yourself.
You're Gnostic, right?
Yeah.
Gnostic.
Yeah.
You believe in a God.
Yeah.
Something above that is providing you with some sort of inspiration and guidance.
No.
And no guidance?
No.
Yeah, but even
Is that agnostic or is that atheist?
Gnostic, not agnostic. That means
What
lack
is
of-
his situation called? He believes in a maker, but
I think it's agnostic.
he's agnostic.
Yeah, it's agnostic.
Yeah,
he can't
it's when
prove
you
that
can't-
it's
you
can't prove
land
that
on
it is or
something.
isn't, right? Or what it is exactly.
You
This is a bigger
But
question.
I was because I was raised Christian, by the way. I'm forgetting to mention, like I did PSR, I did church.
Prove it. Show me a certificate. For
I can show you. I was baptized. I
his
did the whole
brother
thing.
his brother's religious, goes to
not,
church.
not anymore.
Oh,
Not
is he
anymore.
not either?
He tried it because he was lost, as most religious people do. They try it because they're lost, and it gives them a sense of direction and hope, which I think religion is good for. But it's we grew up religious. We both kind of got turned off to it. And I've always been sort of I don't know, just rubbed the wrong way. Like when I was in PSR as a kid, 7 years old, I was 8 years old. I was like, Mom, this feels weird. Like the things like they're telling me and preaching to me. I'm not here for the shoving of faith down the throats of
You mean
people who just
catechism?
don't know better.
Yeah, I think it's well said. Like if you take it back to what you said earlier,
you
you
mean
said
learning like actually about the
I'm
religion?
okay with being a good person. Well, that's not even really the foundation of our belief, because whose definition of good? We live in a world that has some low good standards. Like if you don't go to jail 5 times, you're a good dad. It's like, no, you're not a good dad. You're not supposed to do that,
No,
right?
I don't think so.
So good is a meter we can change.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm.
Well, where do you get good from?
I think the universally accepted definition of good is like right and wrong. When something's right and something's
Morality,
wrong.
general morality.
Well,
Yeah.
morality, like you said, changes drastically from person to person,
And faith to faith.
massively from city to city,
But we
from
would
country
still,
to
yeah, we
country.
would
Is
still
there-
agree though. We would still agree on
Like
what
in,
most is good.
certain countries, the morale thing is that women should cover up, not vote, and not be allowed to participate in it. That's the morale. That's
And
the
that's
morale.
good.
of the
But
states
we
in
know,
the
but we
country.
know that's wrong.
We know in
No,
this country,
no, we know
but
that-
several 100 million people in another
Why?
country
Why?
think
Why?
it's right.
Why?
Because of their standards and
Because-
their
why?
morals. What do you mean?
Why?
Religion.
Why there's religion?
Because
Yeah.
The answer is religion.
yeah,
So,
absolutely,
well,
absolutely.
yeah,
but it comes back to that question of like, what is the right answer to it? We think we have one answer, whether it's because of religion or ethics or moral
Right.
fiber or what we're born with or our
Yeah.
parents teach us. We all think we know what's right, but then there's a whole nother group of people who think something else. And so, to his point,
Because of what though? What's the catalyst?
sometimes how society raised you in Japan or China,
Yeah.
you're raised whatever to be a certain way, regardless of religion. You're raised by your parents to go to school 86 hours a fucking week. You know what I'm saying?
But I believe there is
here.
I
Here
believe-
we believe in different standards.
I believe inherently humans know what is right, or maybe not know what is right. I believe there is a right. I believe there is a wrong. I believe there is a bad. I believe there is a good. And it's not too hard to tell the difference.
Tough for you to say though, because you were raised in a Christian household. So there would be some of that.
I'm just sitting back and listening to this whole thing. I think sometimes like these videos just don't need a response. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but where's your morality come from if God does not interact with you at all? Your
He's-
morality is coming from God.
he said the universal definition, and then he's like just right and wrong, and he's like, where's that coming from though?
Yeah,
And-
and it's so one of the things that he brought up, he's like, I like the idea of being a good person. I do too. But the problem here is I accept that I can never be a good person in the eyes of God, and he does not accept that. He accepts that he can be a good person by working, by doing all of this stuff, by following his morality that he says he just gets from the fairy, the morality fairy. The whole basis of repentfulness is accepting that you suck. I hate to say it so bluntly, but it is. It's my pastor puts it like this. He's like, the church is nothing more than me telling you every Sunday that you suck, Jesus is awesome, and come hear how he helps us with our suckiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. We suck, we sin, we over and over again, we steal everything from God. And God had to come down and cure us of this wretched disease and cleanse us in the eyes of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so accepting that you are sinful and that you need help, and we can see that even in like normal life. Like some people don't want to accept that they need help, right? Like if you're building something and especially with like men, I don't know why, but men, if you're building something as a man and somebody walks up there like, hey buddy, you need some help, and you're like, no, I got it. Like it's human nature to want to do it yourself and not have any help, not realize that you're doing it wrong, not wanting to admit that you're wrong in what you're doing. So how much more sense does it make that it's hard for us to admit that we're wrong whenever it comes to our very nature? Like our very passions and desires are wrong in the eyes of God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as well, you do really need to understand like where your standards are coming from, because Logan doesn't know, and Lentz points it out, where your morality, and the reason why you think that is because you come from this, you actually come from this, like moral heritage, this religious background. And so you're gonna go ahead and point out and think, oh, it's so easy to say that beating your wife is like so wrong, and child slavery is so wrong. The reason why you think that is because you grew up in a Western Christian society, which values and morals are still residing within you. There's a big study on Western society and how like greatly influenced it is by Christianity. And secular people will borrow from Christianity without knowing. I mean, it's something that you have to be really aware about, that we're biased in our morals. We have a moral heritage. We can't just say, oh, I think I know this is where I'm going, or that's where I'm going. Because everyone has an upbringing, a moral upbringing, whether or not it's your parents, whether or not it is a mentor or some friends or someone. You're always going to be influenced by the environment around you in terms of your morality. Now, the question arises is not, oh, it's because of religion. Oh, it's because of, X, Y, and Z. The point that the guy over there, the guy on the right of the video, he was basically saying, okay, we know that, but the point is there has to be a true one. There has to be a true model of morality. There has to be a true narrative that explains human reality itself. And so I think that's the point that I think Logan was kind of struggling with, because he's saying, oh, everyone has their own thing and stuff like that, and people just kind of know what right and wrong is. It's like, I do agree that God gives us a law. Like he gives the Gentiles a law within their hearts. But at the same time, our law easily gets skewed because of our human nature.
Yeah.
And
the suppression of the law is a thing, and especially whenever idolatry comes into play, and that's idolatry can be idolatry of self, idolatry of ancestors and other religions. So whenever we start to worship something other than God, the law starts to get farther and farther away, because God is made the law, and God. The law flows out of God because he is so holy that we can't possibly look at God and not see how terrible we are at following God's rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so the further we stray from God in acts of idolatry and immorality, etc., the more suppressed the law gets in our heart. That does not mean that the law is gone. It's still on our hearts. We have modern ideas, especially with PMO. I don't know if you want me to say it like on on your stream. I mean, on your recording.
Go ahead. I'll cut it out if it's bad.
Okay, so with God, like with like the there's this new thing called like post nut clarity, and where people where people like feel bad after they pleasure themselves, and it's a thing that happens to people who are religious. It happens to people who aren't religious. Happens to atheists, and we have to wonder, where does that come from? Is it just a product of our environment? Is it just what if the person grew up an atheist? Never even had Christianity in the back of their mind. It's the law imprinted on your heart. So yeah, it's just crazy to see that play out. But yeah, they're the two Christians here are doing pretty good.
That would have trickled down into your heart.
Okay.
So your framework would be, but I agree with you to your baseline point. And here's the catch. We're the only faith system that says it's not about being good, because we cannot be good enough. So Jesus kind of did away with all that, because that's what religion was. Religion was working your way up to God. Every other faith, pray this long, pray this hard, do this many good deeds. And then Jesus flipped it and said, I did all that for you. Now all you have to do is come to me. That's what blew people's minds. That's why they were like, kill this dude right away, kill him. Because if he's right, everything we stand for is wrong. So do I want to be a good person? Absolutely. But I know that I'm going to fail, because I am a sinner and I'm human. That's why I need Jesus, not to get to be a better person. Like, that's not ultimately what Jesus came to do, to make people better people. He came to transform your whole soul.
But you're a sinner on whose accord?
Well, according to my faith, and also according to what we just talked about. Even if I wasn't a Christian, you know some things are wrong.
Yeah, but like having sex before marriage isn't, in my opinion, wrong. But according to religion, it is.
Not religion.
Sorry, Christianity.
Well, this is where at our church we do it different.
Okay.
So I would take you to what I believe the Bible says about this. And I'd say, you tell me. You get to know Jesus. Here's what it says about sex. God created it. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. If you went to a church that told you sex was bad, there was that whole generation that was like, sex ain't bad. So you're crazy.
Right.
We put it in its context, and then God puts the parameters to make it the best you could ever have it, which includes sex. That's why God put it in the boundaries of marriage, not to take away from your life, but to have the maximum value for what it is, all about. But you, Logan, have to make your call. It can't be because your church said. That's when people start to push back. Like they run from stuff, and it was never a relationship with Jesus. They push back from religion. So that's kind of where I would take you. Any question you'd ask me before I gave you my take on it, I'd say, well, let's go see what God said. Because it's not about what I think is right. If it was about me, golly, I'd be the worst, the worst God ever.
But let's see what God says. You're talking about your God.
Yes.
If I was talking to a Muslim, the answer would be different.
So you got to figure out, but it's worth looking. You got to go, okay.
You got to investigate.
Like I studied that.
Yo,
I went to study some of those.
But this is where I get confused. Like who's right and who's wrong? Are Muslims wrong because they're Muslim? Are Christians wrong because they're Christian? And what are the consequences of being right and wrong? Or are we all just people on an earth that was created by some guy? And now we're here, and it's up to us to discern what our future looks like.
I personally, if I could, I would be a universalist, which are the people who believe good stuff. They talk to the universe.
That's what I do.
I know. I know. And whenever someone says that, like, man, the universe is giving me good stuff back, I'm always like, the universe doesn't know you. It's definitely not the universe. That cliff over there is not sending you good vibes back. Okay. I know it sounds good.
Sort of.
But
the universe does know you because you are the universe.
Okay.
You're a part of
According
it.
to
facts and atoms in your body and
okay,
the way the universal matter, the makeup of this planet.
I'm okay with that.
Because I just, when I talk to the universe, I'm like, hey, yo, I wish for the best life ever. I want to be the biggest YouTuber on the planet. I'm speaking my thoughts and my desires into existence. And I mean, I know you've probably heard and dabbled and have extreme experience with the word manifestation, but I am a big believer in manifestation.
Some people call that prayer.
Exactly. It's
the almost exact same thing.
So it is. So why tie an entire
okay, can we pause for a
faith
second?
behind it that has
Okay, so what troubles me, what he just said, the manifestation is almost as Like it's
Synonymous.
almost the same thing. Yeah, yeah. So let's look at the Lord's Prayer, right? I think there's one thing that openly contradicts manifestation within the Lord's Prayer. And manifestation, if anybody doesn't know, it's speaking something into existence, something that you want. And if you keep on saying it, keep on thinking about it, keep on, not only doing like working towards it. Of course, it's going to happen if you work towards it, right? Or it might not. I don't know. You might die. But anyways, but if you keep on thinking about it, keep on speaking it, like talking about it. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So if we look at verse 10 here, boys, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That is the difference here. Prayer is prayer in God's will. So whenever Jesus says, whatever you ask of me, it'll be done. What he's talking about there is, it's not like, Jesus, I ask for 50,000 virgins right now in my room. Like, I'm not Muslim, but that'd be a Muslim prayer right there. What he's saying is that if it's within God's will, it will be done. We see that in the Lord's Prayer, which is the perfect prayer. And so, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Manifestation is based on your own will. Manifestation is based on what does Logan want, and Logan is going to spawn into existence. Not what does God want for me? What does God know what is best for me? What does God want me to have at this moment? And what does God want me not to have at this moment? So, that they were doing really well, the two Christian dudes, but they kind of struck a chord with me. I do want to also talk about, he was like, what religion is true? And I can tell that he's not taking that question seriously, because at the beginning of this, he didn't know that Judaism, they didn't believe Jesus was God. So, I mean, if you really care about which religion is true, do some research. Do some research on Abrahamic religions. Do some research on Judaism. Do some research on the main popular religions: Baha'i, Hinduism, Shintoism, Confucianism, Islam, Christianity, the different branches of all of them. If you really care about that question, you will research them, and you will know that Judaism does not worship Jesus.
Mm-hmm. I did like how you tied it back to the Lord's Prayer, because I didn't analyze that. But I mean, part of the reason why most millennials, and it's starting to happen in Gen Z as well, this whole manifest new age, evil eye, all that stuff, the reason why people like that is because it doesn't require anything of you. It actually serves you. And so people want a religion. People say, oh, I'm spiritual, not religious, because they don't like the idea of someone giving you a framework on how to live morality. People don't like the aspect of organized morality or organized religion. People want to be free form and do whatever they want and do whatever they please. So at the end of the day, they want something spiritual, they want something divine, but they don't want that kind of submission and understanding that, like, I have to obey someone else's will. It has to do, and that's why I think most of these things are demonic in nature. Because what does Satan tempt Jesus with? Satan tempts Jesus with what? Riches and fame, and there's a few temptations. Huh?
Food,
like the earthly pleasures of this life. And it's not saying that these things are bad, but what the devil does is he tries to manipulate these good things and creates them and makes them accessible to people in bad ways. So it's saying, oh, you don't have to worship God and you can still receive these benefits. And so that's what the devil does with these religions, is that he's presenting to people, you don't have to sacrifice. You don't have to live a life devoted to God. You don't need holiness. You can receive these benefits despite that. And that's what's so appealing to human nature, when you have, a doctrine of manifestation where the universe serves me, and I don't have to give up anything that makes me uncomfortable or strictens my conscience. That and I'm not saying there's not no reflection, but there's not that sort of thing that there's a will outside of mine that I have to align my will to, and I'm being conformed into that image.
Yeah, definitely. I think people naturally, because because since the fall of man, people yearn for connection with God, and part of that is connection to the spiritual aspect of reality, and so they yearn for that spiritual aspect, but they don't want to admit that they can't possibly reach that spiritual aspect uh while they're in this state of sin and without recognizing that they're in a state of sin. So what people do is they make these false spiritual things, and most of them I would say are demonic, and these are false spiritual realities that lead you further away from God. Because if it I saw this one TikTok one time, and it was like praise to God for years for money or something like that, and then it was like offers something to a pagan god one time and gets the money the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like yeah, it's because you didn't want to admit that there is a will outside of your own that is more powerful than yours.
And people also don't like the fact of just getting rejected for a greater reason. We're at our spirit and our soul, we're spiritually immature. Like, we're children in terms of like religion and spiritual things, because we want things to go our way. We want things to benefit us. We want to focus on everything that has to do with the benefit, to us, our society, to whatever we desire. And so for that reason, we're going to actualize a religion that kind of goes in line of that. And Christianity just kind of says, that's not how it is. It's actually in reverse.
Yeah, I think that perfectly ties into what he was saying. And like my response I normally give to people, like, okay, why is sex before marriage bad? And especially whenever addressing homosexuality, we can understand like you're like, I don't see anything bad with it. So let's compare it to this. I think I got this analogy from somebody else. I'm sorry if I did. I don't remember credit. Basically, it's like a mom or a dad is telling their kid not to climb a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The kid wants to climb this tree so bad. It's a giant tree. It's perfect for climbing. Those trees. It's perfect for climbing, and they really want to climb it. But the parents know that they will fall. They know that they've had a record for falling off of the tree, whatever. And the parents, explain like, hey, no, little Timmy, you can't climb the tree. You're going to fall. And little Timmy's like, that's a dumb reason. I don't believe your reasoning. I don't believe your reasoning. And then they cry about it. Now let's apply that to God. Let's say God is the parent here, because God is our Father who art in heaven. He says, hey, sexual immorality is bad because I've given you these guidelines for sex, and the sexual union is supposed to be within marriage, and marriage is between one man, one woman. So to do it outside of that is wrong and dangerous. And we're the kids, and our human rebellious nature says, God, I don't like your reasoning. I don't hold to that reasoning. I'm going to go do it anyways. And guess what? We go and do it. We fall off the tree. And falling off the tree, and either there's two ways. You can either fall off the tree, come running back to God like the prodigal son, or you can fall off the tree and be even more mad at God and openly reject him. That's literally sin in a nutshell. Over and over again do we fall off the tree. It's just whether or not we come running back to God.
Right. Well, we'll finish this out.
That has so much baggage and has led to so many disagreements and confusion and death.
But he's also looking at the negative
so
side.
Has the internet's done all that too, and we don't write it off. So the fact of, like, first of all, we don't love conflict and we don't love tension.
Of course.
So if you talk to a millennial, if you talk to somebody who's getting 4 degrees in theology, like, we push back on anything that becomes absolute, even though that's what our souls crave. So if you tell somebody there's one way, then people are like, that can't be right.
Like, you don't hate other religions.
Correct. And so it's we don't want the tension of really, and you've expressed that in a good way. I mean, you're saying you're really searching, you're looking, and you end up landing on something that's not so, in your mind, narrow. And I always say our faith seems narrow, but like Jesus said, it's a narrow road, but it is a wide, expansive life.
Yeah. I will. I'll say some concluding thoughts. I don't know how much time you have. right now.
Yeah, I probably have to go after like this clip is probably my last one.
Okay. Well, I'll just clip this out. Well, any concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like how he said the Christian in the clip. He said if I could, I want to be a universalist. Same. I want to be a universalist too. I'd be a universalist. I'd probably support abortion, etc. I'm gonna be honest. If I was going off of my own judgment, I'd probably support abortion. Not really care about gays and homosexuals and lesbians, transgenders, and I'd be a universalist. The problem here is that it doesn't matter what I think. That does not change a thing. The problem here is that the objective truth is that Christ is true and that God is real and that the God of the Bible came, died, and resurrected for me. And so it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what he thinks. So I'm convinced of that, and I cannot go off of what I feel, right? I have to go off of what God wills and what God has given me as guidance.
Right. I would conclude by saying this Logan Paul's view on religion is representative of a large majority of millennial and Gen Z views on religion. They do not like an organized structure because they've seen time and time again that it has failed. And so what they do is that instead of actually bringing a structure, they desire religious anarchy. And with religious anarchy, no one's really wrong and no one's really right. But you're only wrong in as much as you think you're wrong, and you're only right in as much as you think you're right. And so this kind of worldview creates uncertainty. You do not know for a fact if you are in the right, sense. You just think so. And so I would say that if Logan were here today, like Logan Paul, I would say that you are wrestling with something. You're desiring to have a fluidness of religion, but you don't actually desire, an exact truth. You don't want religion to be a true or false thing. You want religion to be more fluid. And when people do that, what ends up happening is that the religion becomes worthless because it only goes in as much as the person values, how much they think these values are. But if there is a value extrinsic, that is to say, it's not from human beings, then it will be true whether or not I believe it or not, whether or not I think it's convenient or not. And I think we're able to make a society more structured and built upon a religion that actually says there are true things, there are false things, there are lies, there are actual, things that you need to be away from. When you have those guidelines and markers set out for you, you're aware of the things that are actual danger. And it's not like, oh, it's just subjective, or, it could happen for you, but it's not going to happen for me. If these things are actually clearly laid out, we actually have a society that is focused on progress. Because, what the doctrine of progressivism is people want to get better at, want to grow in knowledge and technology and in respecting other people's beliefs. But the thing is, when we don't have a purpose behind progress, it doesn't become progress anymore because you don't have a starting point and you don't have an end point. And so in that kind of basis where no one's really right, no one's really wrong, you don't have a point where something's improving because there's no basis of what's being improved.
Yeah, not only that, there's no foundation to what truth is. Whenever you can't even get down what truth is, I mean, we see this even in like our modern culture, like oh, they're speaking their truth. Like, no, truth is objective, it's not subjective. So whenever you can't even understand that truth is objective, then all of your quote unquote progressions are in vain. And after we try to progress, yet we can't even understand that truth is objective, it's kind of hard. It's like oh, they have their truth and I have my truth, and we just kind of don't talk to each other. That's not how it works. One of y'all is right, one of y'all is wrong. And we need to understand which one is right and which one is wrong on the basis of facts and evidence. But the problem here is not a lot of people like to look at facts and evidence. They like to stay in that realm of, hey, I'm just not going to talk to you and you're just not going to talk to me, because it's easier that way. It's easier that way. There's no basis of morality I have to follow. I don't have to defend my case. I can just do what I want. So we have to firmly say that truth is objective, and without that, we can't make progress.
Mm-hmm. So thank you guys for watching this video. And, if there's any other YouTube creators or any kind of things that you want to have us like kind of overview on like why YouTubers reject Christianity, feel free to, comment that. And I'll be putting all of Logan's stuff down in the description of the video. And if there's anything you guys want to ask, any video recommendations, be sure to comment. And thank you guys for watching this video. God bless.